friends. Welcome to this week's art class. So last week we were talking about those blind contours, right? We played that game where we couldn't look at our hands, we could only look at the screen. Now, today, don't worry, I'll let you look, and we're going to be getting a little bit more into these contour drawings. So, I know you guys remember last week we talked about how sometimes our brain will try to use logic to help us draw something rather than letting our eyes do the work and look at what we actually see. So what happens is we draw what we think we see instead of what we really see. And we talked about how if you were to ask me to draw a shoe from memory, I'd probably draw some kind of L shape, right? But this picture doesn't really look like that. The artists used their eyes to see the shoe that they were looking at, and they changed the shape and the lines accordingly. Same thing with the banana. If someone were to ask me to do a group of bananas, I'd just do this shape, right? But if you look, you can see how part of the bananas is closer to us and part of it is further away because the artist really looked at the shapes. They saw the little curves in between the bananas and the little tiny scuff marks that they get when they're transported different places. We're going to be looking at that kind of detail today. So we talked about last week how contour drawings are drawing the shape of something in space. That's why they look a little bit 3D, even though they don't have shadows, because we're really looking at the direction that the lines are going in. Are they curved? Are they straight? Are they straight up and down? Or do they have a little bit of a slant to them? So we did those contour drawings where we would not look, right? And so I want you guys to really remember how important it is to look at what you're drawing instead of just guessing the shape. And so we can look at our hands this time, but I want you guys to remember how important it is to continue looking at the thing that you're drawing because you may notice details that you hadn't thought about before. Now, we talked last week about our water bottle, right? So looking at the cup in the middle and these two drawings, which one do you think looks more realistic? I think the one on the right looks more realistic, the one on this side. And why do you guys think that is? If you notice the bottom of the cup, it's curved, right? Now, the logical part of our brain thinks, well, obviously the cup's sitting on a flat surface, so it's flat. But if you really look, because we're looking down at the cup, you see that curve on the bottom, just like on the top. And we've practiced this with a lot of our 3D drawing this year. And so yes, you guys can see there's that curve and it's not flat. The flat one doesn't look quite as realistic. Now, let's go ahead and this time we can look at what we're drawing. So let's try to draw that cup really quick. I'll give you guys a few seconds. Remember, we're looking at shapes here, so don't try to draw exactly what I'm doing. I want you to try your best to look at the picture and draw that because I'm human. I will probably make some mistakes and make my drawing look a little bit less than the picture. Then if you copy me, yours will look even less like the picture than mine. So if it helps to see what kind of shapes I see, you can watch me. But do your best to be looking at the picture we're drawing too. That way, you can really practice finding shapes and finding lines that you're going to draw. For this next part, you don't have to draw every single thing I draw. I'd like you to pick 2 or 3 of the pictures that come up, pause, take as long as you need to draw it, and then you can continue the video after that. All right, third, fourth, and fifth graders, this is where the assignment gets a little different for you guys. So when we think about shapes in space, we want to practice getting used to thinking about how our picture isn't just flat, right? There's some things that are further away and some things that are closer, right? Like how my nose is closer to the camera than my ears are. There's a curve that happens here. Let's look at some artwork where some artists used lines to create those curves. Now, this can be very challenging, but I believe you guys can do it. Let's practice with the cup first. Then you guys can pick which of your contour drawings you'd like to add your contour curvature lines to. All right, so I'm thinking about where my cup is curved. So I need to keep in mind that the whole thing curves this way. And you'll guys notice, do you guys see how when I curve, my lines are a little closer together on the edges and they're a little bit further apart in the middle? If you want, you can add extra lines on the edges for shadows. Going to do the same thing down here. And I think I'm going to crosshatch a little bit because it curves this way, right? So wherever you want your shadows to be, you can add lines that curve in a different direction. I'll do the same thing on the inside of my cup. Now I'm going to go in, add my lines that curve in the other direction. Alright, now the handle of my cup, remember, has a little bit of a curve on its own. And just like with the other areas, I'm going to add some shadows. Now remember, if any of this is too fast for you guys, you can pause this video as many times as you need. Don't ever let me get you overwhelmed. I know I can be speedy sometimes, but just pause it, and then when you're ready, you can press play and move on. Or you can go back and watch something again if you need to. Now, I think because my cup curves this way, I'm going to add a couple extra lines on the outside edges, at least so I can get a little bit more of a shadow. So here's your choices. Once you finish with the cup, you can either add a contour background where you're putting it on a table and adding other things, or if you would rather work on one of your other contour drawings, I'd like you to practice adding these curved lines to create the contours in your drawings, all right? So either add a background to this one, or pick one of your other ones and start adding some contour lines to those. Here's your objectives. Number 1, I can create a contour drawing by looking closely at the lines and shapes in what I draw. Number 2, I can use curved lines in my drawing to create the illusion of space. En español, número 1. Yo puedo crear un dibujo de contorno mirando de cerca las líneas, formas, lo que dibujo. Número 2. Yo puedo usar líneas curvas en mi dibujo para crear la ilusión de espacio.